Um, I think everyone here, I know, again, I've said it already, but we're excited what's happening in camp right now. We're excited about that we were able to take these children out of their situations and bring them hours away to have a moment with Jesus, right? Separate from PlayStation, separate from drama, separate from all the stuff going on in their life, so that they can go face to face with Jesus. And we're really praying, and we already have testimonies coming in, but we're really praying that every single student has a life-changing moment, right? I really feel like the Lord loves to get and grab children's captivity, or not their imagination, right? And captivate them at a young age, right? I have the blessing of that. My parents raised me in the church and stuff, and though I ran away for a second, you know, how stories go, you know, the Lord was still there when I was 4. You know, he was still there when I was 5. He was still there, like, you know, I remember having the Lord give me statements and dreams when I was 8. You know, I have those memories, and I have the blessing to see my nephews and the children around us have the same type of upbringing, right? That they're able to be brought up not in sin and not in, like, striving to do good in basketball or baseball, but instead to do the Lord's will at a young age. And you know, it's life-changing that they were able to just step into it. And these children that we have this opportunity. We're very happy, and I'm very excited to see what they're doing. I'm already breaking something I said I was going to try to do. I was going to try to stay still today. Last time I preached, I made the media team work overtime, and I was like, I gotta fix that. So I'm going to try to stay in my little square. It's not going to happen, I promise you, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try really hard. Another thing I wanted to do is thank y'all. I didn't really plan to mention our situation already. Most of y'all know the situation. I didn't plan to mention that, but I did want to mention this, that we feel the intercession that y'all have done for us. We feel the prayers. My wife actually made a post just yesterday saying what she's been going through. She's planned to come to service last 2 Sundays and just medically could not get up out of bed. She was on oxygen, her platelets were low, her red blood cells count was low, all the whole nine. And so finally they put her in the hospital. She's been there for 4 days. And I'm going to see her tonight. But I say that to say that she has felt those prayers and those cares. And then even the calls and the text and the people showing up at the house and loving on us has meant the world to us. And it's an honor for me to be y'all's family. You know, I've been here for about 3 years now, and it's an honor for me to have joined y'all. And I'm hoping that me and my wife is a blessing to y'all. But right now, y'all are doing like out of this world good to us. And we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Today, the sermon I have for you today is called The Pursuit in the Wilderness. The Pursuit in the Wilderness. You know, the Bible has these concepts that I really like. He has like the mountaintop. You see like the prophets or the men of God go up to the mountaintop and they see the wind move and they see the direction of the Lord and they see the prophetic messages, right? We see good things come from the mountaintop, or the raining season where you're fruitful and you're multiplying and you're taking land. Right? We see these concepts that are great and we really want them and we pray for them. But then we see this other aspect, the wilderness place, the dry place, the valley. And as a kid, I remember that, you know, people would always pray to get out of those seasons. You know, the Lord or a crisis would send them into the season, right? The Lord can call you down from the mountain, but also crisis can call you down. You can think of Elijah, who went up to the mountain, got told directions, and had to go back down the mountain to handle Jezebel and her husband, right? There are these situations where we have to come down from the mountain to participate with our calling. You're with me, right? And so I don't believe, though, that even when you're called to a dry place, you're supposed to be dry. I don't believe that. Jesus went to a fig tree. He went to a fig tree. It did not have figs on it, right? Jesus, the loving, kind Jesus that we know, right? Went to the fig tree. It did not have figs on it. He cursed the fig tree for not having figs. And his disciples said, it's not in season. It's not its season to produce. But yet Jesus was determined to make the statement that we produce in season and out of season. There's not an off season to produce. And they left the tree and came back and it was dead. Right? And so we, in this new covenant, I don't believe we're called to not be in the presence of God. Right? That there's times where people say, oh, I tried to pray and I can't get to the Lord. I can't feel his presence. I can't feel his word. Right? I'll be honest right here. Besides, like the Lord has given me good revelation and when I go into prayer, but he hasn't told me direction in my season I'm currently in. Right? He hasn't told me to go to this doctor versus this doctor or this hospital versus this. He has not told me any of that. But he's been with me every step of the way. And he's poured out his revelation to me in his throne room, in the heavenlies. Are you all with me? And so I have not went without the Lord in this whole season. Have not. He's actually even pulled me in. I told Bethany, I'm not a musical person. I'm not. Right? I struggle with it. I've always struggled with it. I'm tone challenged. I have no rhythm. I can't hear notes very well. And the Lord, when we were starting this year, the Lord told me, hey, start playing music. I was like, maybe, sure, kind of. And slowly but surely, like there was no other option but me to obey, right? The Lord starts to close doors until he gets you only to the door that you're supposed to walk through. And so I tried to do my meditations that I do. I tried to read the Bible. I was like, I'm going to do the Bible in 90 days again. It didn't work. And I tried to do this, and this, and nothing was really getting me near him the way I wanted to be, right? And I sat down by the guitar first, and I played a little bit. I'm like, no, that's not right. And I went to my wife's piano. I started playing, and instantly, I'm still not good at it, but instantly I'm like, oh, this is the place I'm supposed to be at. And for about 3 weeks now, I'm no good. You'll never see me play. But 3 weeks now, my prayer life has been at the piano bench. Right? And what's happened has been me sitting down there playing the C scale, right? And the Lord just drops his presence on me. And I'm not playing a song. I can't play songs. But I'm just feeling the Lord just pull his presence out on me. And it's not complicated words he's telling me, right? He's telling me, I'm with you, son. I'm sitting beside you, son. I love you, son. I'm with your wife right now, son. And he's telling me these things that aren't revolutionary. I know them, but he's not telling me in my ears. He's not telling me in my head. He's telling to my heart. Right? Have I lost anybody yet? And I think the wilderness seasons that we're called into, is to cause thirst to arise in our hearts. That when we have it good, we become content. Y'all with me? When everything's going well, everything's going easily, everything's going, hunky-dory, we become less thirsty. Right? But when the wilderness hits us and water is scarce, right? The presence of God is still there, but it's harder to find. We become desperate. Romans chapter 5, verse 2 says that suffering leads to endurance. Right? Suffering leads to endurance. So when we go without, we press through. Y'all with me? And so I would like to go to Genesis chapter 26. Genesis chapter 26. We're going to start in verse 1. Now there was a famine in the land. Say famine. besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham, your father. I will multiply your offsprings as the stars of heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. We're going to pause right there. We're going to jump back into the same chapter, but we're going to pause right there. I think there's some key things that I would like to go over. The first thing is Egypt. He said, do not go down to Egypt, right? Other people were called to Egypt. They were called to go to Egypt. And after this, it'll be his generations after him will go to Egypt. But he was told not to go to Egypt. And why? I think there's kind of two reasons. One, Egypt's the easy place, right? It's the worldly place, right? It's the entertainment place, right? Instead of the prayer closet, it's the living room, right? Right? It's the place where you can spend time and you can feel okay and not have the busyness of your mind, right? I heard this statement. It's from an old-time revivalist, and he said that entertainment is the substitute for joy. Entertainment is the substitute for joy. And I'm saying this, I love to be entertained. I love a good movie. I love a good show, if my ADHD allows me to finish it. This is the real one for me, I love video games, right? I do. And so, but there is this thing where if I'm playing something, and I say, Lord, just a second, I'll come later. I never come later, right? When the call of the Lord says, hey, come talk to me. I want to talk to my son. Come talk to me, right? The only success I've ever seen is me saying, yes, sir, and putting it down, turning it off, and going, right? Same thing where actually a couple days ago, I was playing the piano, and what's been happening is I'll play, and the Lord will stir something up, and I'll go into prayer about it. And I love praying. It's my favorite thing. And so something came up, and I started praying and stuff. And I said, okay, Lord, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to bed. And the Lord said, I want more. Come talk to me a little bit more. And so right now, I'm on medical leave, right? I don't have any responsibilities besides my wife right now. I said, okay, fine, sure. I'm going to be a little sleepy. And so I stayed up till 2:30. Not a crazy thing. I don't have any responsibilities. But the Lord wanted more of my time. Right? The Lord wanted more of me, not less of me. And I wasn't trying to just check a box. A lot of times we go to our devotionals and say, I read the little devotional, I'm done today. I'm a Christian today. And what I feel like sometimes that happens is when we read the little bit and that's all we do, right? The little bit can feed us if that's what the Lord's trying to do. But sometimes I think we just take the bread and sniff it and say, I'm full. Right? We take the loaf of bread and just, I'm full, I'm good. And then we start to starve, and we're wondering why we're starving. And we will fill that with something else. Right? There will be a filling of that. And you're going to notice 1 week it's okay, 2 weeks is okay, 3 weeks, all of a sudden those words came back in my language, and I don't know where they came from. I hadn't cursed in months. Or this thing that I've dealt with, this anger that I've dealt with that's been long gone has already just started coming. I'm mad at people in traffic. I'm mad at people at work. I'm just cantankerous. Or, in marriage, I haven't argued with my wife. There hasn't been any issues, but now I feel apathetic. I feel bored. All of these things come back up when we're just sniffing because we're not being fed. And we're being filled instead with the world. Are y'all with me? And I also think that Egypt can be something else. I believe this is not a new battle that we've had to fight, right? This is not a new battle. But I believe that one of the greatest obstacles for a Christian is boredom. That when going to prayer, it's boring. When going to the Bible, it's boring. When going to church, yeah, man, it's 2 hours, but it's boring, and I don't want to be there. And then when can I get to Nikki's? Right? It's boring to do the things because there's no life in the things that we're doing. Wow. And it's on our part, not the Lord's. Yeah, that's good. And so I think that Egypt can also be a place where water is easy to come by, but it's not ours. Where you come to Sunday to hear a good little word, but you have no word of your own. Where you're empty and you're expecting to be filled up, but everyone else is coming to the service already filled up and joining in with the river. And you're wondering why everyone else is having a big reaction or a good moment or is growing and is hitting milestones. And you're wondering why that's happening, and you just feel cold to it. But it's because you have no water already in you. Are y'all with me? And so there's another thing I see in this passage is that the Lord called Isaac to the wilderness despite the famine. Right? The Lord knew that there was a famine. He knew it was a bad place, but he called him to that place despite what the atmosphere currently was. Right? But this was not based on what Isaac did or was. This was based on Abraham. Right? He said, I'm going to do this because Abraham honored his word. Right? Another example of this is Solomon. Solomon built the temple. It was this lavish and majestic thing that he built. And when he goes in to dedicate the temple, he says, Lord, light the flame. And it's a divine thing, right? Light the flame, not because of me, but because of my father David. And the Lord answered Solomon and lit the flame, sent fire from heaven, lit the flame, and the glory of the Lord filled the room. Not because of Solomon, once again, but because of his David. Right? Same here. And for us, there's two parts to this, I think. One, I think we ignore our pastor way too much. And I get to say this because I'm not the pastor. Right? If he says it, we kind of, he's just trying to control me, right? But I could say it all I want, so I'm going to say it, right? But that our pastor is the shepherd, right? Our pastor leads us to the good fields, right? He leads us to the good places. He leads us to the brook that we can lie down in. Our pastor does this. But yet we treat that as trivial. Hey, you should help out with this or this. I don't want to. No, I'm good, pastor. Yeah, I'm good. Right? And we treat him as trivial and not as God sent. And I believe that spiritual authority is a blessing. When we had bad news, I called two people, pastor and my spiritual father. And y'all have met him. Bill Byers, he came and preached a month ago, two. Actually, I think it was like 3. But he came in and spoke, right? Those are the two people I called before my parents, right? Why? Because they are a blessing and they carry something that I need. Are y'all with me? I'm saying that we're kind of quiet today, and I know it's because we're missing bodies, but I'm trying to get y'all excited a little bit. But and another thing that I think we discredit about fathers is that we don't look into the past at all. That we don't stand on the shoulders of the revivals that came before us. And I'm a revival guy. My purpose in Natchitoches is not to be a police officer. Right? My purpose in Natchitoches is not to preach every so often, right? My purpose in Natchitoches is to see the glory of the Lord come to Natchitoches and dwell here. Right? My purpose in Natchitoches is to see the entire environment change. Right? And I'm not a prosperity preacher, but I believe that when this happens, the economic value of Natchitoches changes. I believe the crime changes. I believe the type of people, it's the same people, but there's a change in their mindset. Right? Where you're building and not taking. Are y'all with me? And it's the same people. I don't think the Lord's bringing in new people. It's a transformation, though. And that's what I'm praying for, and that's what I'm here for. And we have great revivals of the past that many of y'all might not even know what they are, but they have built our traditions. They've built where we've came from. You know, the Welsh revival in 1904 really pushed in on what it meant to have a service, right? And in that, it actually led, and letters came from that, and things. And the Azusa Street revival happened in Los Angeles, and it was so big, and it was so impactful. It was with primarily African American preachers who were kicked out of other churches there, and it was so large in that street that the porch where they were preaching at fell down. They had so many people on the porch, it fell down. And the leader of the revival, name is William Seymour, one of my favorite preachers. William Seymour, his education came because he wasn't allowed inside the college. And so he sat outside the window and had the window open outside and would listen outside the building. Right? And the charismatic and the Pentecostal and the spirit-filled believers in America come from him. We are here. Our tradition is here because it came from him. Camp meetings and those type of events, those revival services came from that moment. And that's what started a tradition of having moments where the Lord will pour himself out in. We have even more recently Brownsville Revival. I know a lot of people that were there at that. And it has affected my life very heavily. Pretty much all of my people I look up to came from this revival. And I'm not pointing these out to say, look what God did, but to do this instead. Look what God can do. Right? And that we're not trying to emulate them. We're not trying to emulate them. We're standing on their shoulders. And just like Jesus told his disciples that I am going to go so that you might do more. You might do greater things than I. The same thing is every single parent is saying the same thing to their child. I'm going to go and you're going to do greater things than I. But yet in our walk with God, we try to tread the water. We try to make it just into, am I saved? Am I not saved? Instead of building the kingdom up and allowing our kids to then carry the stick even further. Right? And so God said all of this to Isaac because of his father. And then he says a blessing. And this blessing for us, right, when I see this is one of those places where I believe Jesus is that blessing. Jesus is that portion. Jesus is that offspring of Israel. Y'all with me? I believe the Old Testament, this is an old saying, the Old Testament is Christ concealed and the New Testament is Christ revealed. And when I see stuff talking about the blessings and all of the earth will be blessed, I see Jesus in that. I see Jesus being that. And so often we try to live a Christless Christianity, that we're going to do these things and not encounter the reason for those things. Right? We're going to go to church, but we're not going to encounter Jesus. We're going to check the box and go home. We're going to read the Bible maybe once a week, maybe, and it's to say we did it so that when we go to church, we got that box checked. We're good. Right? Instead of reading the Bible saying, Jesus, where are you? Jesus, where are you? Right? And so going back to the same passage, we're actually going to jump down to verse 12. Verse 12. And it said, and Isaac sowed. Say sowed. He sowed in a famine, right? And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father Abraham's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. And he gave the names of that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servant dug in the wells and found there were a well of water, spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "That water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended, with him. Then they dug another well and quarreled over that also. So he called it Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called the name Rehoboth, saying, "For now the Lord had made room," say room, "for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." There then he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him that same night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, will bless you and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. You know, a couple things I see pop out is one, success, right? When you succeed, it will cause your friends or your community or your people that are around you that are not submitted to Jesus to envy you. But they don't want how you got it. They don't want to do the work that you did, right? Isaac dug the wells and got joy, right? And then the depressed friend who does not want to submit to Jesus said, "I want that joy, but I don't want to do the digging. I'm tired of feeling the way that I feel. I'm tired of going through these cycles that I'm going through, but I don't want to do what you did." And so what happens then? And y'all have seen it. There's separation. There's a little pushback. Maybe not a break of friendship, but there's a little hesitation there. There's a little, are they about to talk to me about Jesus again? There's a little hand there. Are y'all with me? Another thing I noticed is that success will cause the world to want our fruit, right? When we build something, people gather to it. Right? We see, like America, we have all these opportunities, right? We have all these opportunities. We all have all these things, and we have the ability to pursue God freely, and that's desirable. Another place, actually, when I was raised as a kid in Leesville, there's a really big population of Koreans there. And I was blessed to be able to be a part of a Korean church and really seeing that culture. And they told me that when the Korean War broke out, they were nervous when they made the line because the North Korean was the breadbasket of Korea. And they were nervous because they were mountainous, South Korea was. They had mountains all around that they weren't going to be able to do anything. They weren't able to grow agriculture. They weren't able to do stuff. And so they started praying, right? And Korea has one of the biggest churches in the whole world. And at that time, it was they were really working. That church was. And it's a really God and Holy Spirit-filled church. And they were really doing work in that time period. And not only did they become an economic center of that portion, right? They're very successful. They have a lot of success in economics. We buy stuff from them all the time, especially in technology. But not only that, but by per capita, they produce more missionaries than America does. Right? They have a smaller population, so per capita is important there. But per capita, more people that are Christians are sent out from them than from us. Right? The Lord blessed them, but people are drawn to that blessing. Right? But again, they don't want to do the work that they did. Right? When you look into their church, I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly, so I'm just not going to try. But when you look into that church and see how they built it, people don't want to do that effort, right? That the pastor there cultivated hundreds of small groups essentially, and then brought them in together into this network. You know how much work that is to deal with that many people, and then to trust those same people, right? To delegate correctly. There was work there, and he was digging a well, not for success, not for the ability to say, oh, I did this, but for Jesus. Right? The pursuit was Jesus, not this thing. But when he pursued Jesus, this was the result. Moving on, victory will follow perseverance. So Isaac built multiple wells, right? He built a well, they moved him. He built a well, they moved him. He did not contend and fight for that specific well. He just moved. And when he found room, this is really important. We're going to come back to this. So remember, Rehoboth means room. Remember that. We're going to come back to that. This is actually the crux of my whole sermon. I read a portion of the Bible, and the Lord said, and kind of highlighted it in my spirit, and I was like, okay, I don't know what this is meaning. I read some commentaries, and this links everything. So we're going to come back to it, remember it. And then lastly, for this passage, after room was made, right, Isaac had the authority to go to the high place, right? He found Rehoboth, he found room, and then he went to the high place of Beersheba. And in the visitation, in the promise that God gave him, because this is the promise he's given him, he said, if you stay here, I will give you this promise, right? Isaac stays here, he showed himself approved, and then the promise was given to him. A lot of times when we get promises or things, we discard them, and it's like, okay, cool, thanks God, and we don't do anything about it. But Isaac built an altar there, right? He built something to show sacrifice, the sacrifice that he did. Another thing was that he built a tent, a dwelling place. Where the Lord is, he wants to be also. And lastly, he built another well. This is on top of a mountain, right? That digging is not easy. The work involved is not easy, but he dug again because where he was, he needed living waters. And I know there's a really big thing, and I believe in it, but like we shouldn't strive for God. I believe that completely. But striving, I believe, is working for validation. That you're working to be validated. Well, a sonship is working with expectation. Right? I don't dig to prove myself as a good digger. Right? I dig because I know I will find water. I know it. It's not anything else. I know because I'm a son that I can boldly enter his throne. That I can boldly call upon his name. That I can beseech his throne and he will answer. I know these things because I'm a son. I'm not striving for that. And so my work for him is not in validation, but with expectation. And so I don't really always like metaphoric statements, right? What does digging mean? What does digging look like? What is our pursuit supposed to be when we're in those positions? Like what does that look like? And I believe in John chapter 7. I won't read it to y'all. I do think it's going to be placed up there, but Jesus gets up, it's the last day of the festival. Jesus gets up there and cries out, "Come all who are thirsty. Come all who are thirsty." And then he says, bear with me here. Come and drink, because there will be rivers of living water flow from your bellies. Right? That's a paraphrase, but I've already read y'all a lot, and I don't want to bore y'all too badly. but there will flow rivers of living waters out of your bellies. I believe this, that when we're digging, we're looking for water, right? When we're praying, we're looking for those rivers. When we're going to the Lord, we're looking for those living waters that give life. And in our walk, the digging comes harder and easier in different places. Right? Sometimes you're digging from the top of that mountain. Sometimes you're digging where water used to be. Right? There are some scholars that believe that actually where Isaac was only dry because of the famine, but it usually has water there. Right? So the valley has the water. It was an easier dig than the high place. But if you have never digged, how are you going to dig when you go to the high place? How are you going to have the strength to go to that? How are you going to do it? Because you don't have the technique down. You don't have the lessons down. You don't have the maturity down, right? And so my last passage I want to go into with y'all is John chapter 14. I'm going to read this one for y'all, okay? John chapter 14, verse 1. And it says, let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe in also in me. In my Father's house, say house, are many rooms. Say rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am going, you may be also. And you know the way that I'm going. And Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know the way you're going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. This passage is actually one of my favorite passages. I have like 6 sermons that come from this alone. I did like a 3-part series on John 14:6, and I'm not going to do that today for y'all. Okay, we'll be here for a little while. But I'm going to try not to touch on too much stuff. But the Lord brought me to this passage, and he kind of highlighted house and rooms. House and rooms. And I went to the concordances and the commentaries. And one thing here, this is a little pet peeve of mine, right? Coming to a conclusion by yourself is what's called theological novelty, and it's a heresy, right? Right? When you just say, hey, look, I think this passage means this because I have a grumpy belly and I just feel that way. That's not a good thing to do, right? But when you go into study and you use other people and you read other people and you read other things and you start to build a thought out, and then you go into the Greek and you go into the thing, there is then evidence, right? There's evidence to produce there. And so that's what I did. I read a very esteemed commentary that's used by people who practice the Christianity very similar to us, right? And it actually, I was expecting it to say something different, but it was saying that this was not an end time prophecy that Jesus was giving them. We read this all the time and think it's an end time prophecy. This passage was saying, no, this is him saying that after he dies, the thing that he's doing is going to prepare a place. And then he's going to come back and take them to that place. Right? And then it said that the house was not a mansion. He wasn't promising mansions to us, right? But instead, it's a dwelling place. Right? And we see this okios, right, is a dwelling, a tabernacle, the house of God, temple or sanctuary. Right? That's what that word means. And the Lord is saying, in my dwelling place, in the Father's dwelling place, he will make room for you. He's not giving you a bedroom, right? Instead, it's a place of abiding, to continue in, right? The very next chapter, and I think we might not know all the context all the time in this passage. In John chapter 13, he sends all of his disciples in the upper room. This possibly might be the same upper room that they are filled with the Holy Spirit in, right? But they go up into the upper room, he washes their feet, and then he tells them this, And then John 15, I think John 15 is the hinge point of the Bible, where if you would open the Bible and move it on its hinges, it's John 15, and it's abide in me and I in you, right? That it's right after this passage, abide in me and I in you. And then 16 and 17, he leaves and goes to the Garden of Gethsemane and is killed, right? He is arrested and killed. He's saying this because in 4 days' time, he's going to be coming back. They don't realize the moment that they are having with him, but this is his last moments. So he's not just saying this because he's ranting or something random. He's saying this as his last words. And so the other commentary I read was from a different kind of tradition than us, and I really liked it. It actually was saying that rooms was a form of authority. That if you had a room in a king's castle, you had a level of authority based on that room, but more authority than anybody outside that room. And so he was saying that the way that God prepared the way was that he went into the enemy's territory and made room for us to have authority also. Wow, that's good. Right? He made room for us. He made room for us to dig wells. Wow. He made room for us that we might have a pursuit of him and a place of an atmosphere determined by the enemy. In a drought, in a famine, that we have the ability to still find water because he made the way. Come on. That's good. And I think that way, that statement, we kind of gloss over it in our context, but the way, they called themselves, the disciples after this moment, they called themselves the followers of the way. They called themselves the followers of the way. This is before Christian was invented. And when the Romans started to insult us with the word little Christian or little Christ, we took it as honor and called ourselves that as almost irony. But before that happened, before that name was invented, we call ourselves the followers of the way because it was such a tremendous message that the Lord gave them. And so if Bethany could come up, she's doing little motherly things, but we're going to be ending our message and this is what I'm feeling, right? I know we're kind of a smaller group tonight or today, but I'm just feeling like the Lord wants, and I don't believe we can always determine like where we're going in what the Lord is saying, right? What I mean by that is that in a moment where we demand things of the Lord, and I don't know if always the Lord says, I want you to tomorrow too. I want you the next day also. I want to see you, not work for it, but I want to see that you're actually striking or you're just going through the motions, right? That Isaac had to dig multiple wells before room was made, right? And Jesus even tells the parable of the man who goes to the door and knocks and asks for bread. And he knocks and asks for bread and knocks and asks for bread. And it's not until after a couple asks does the man give him bread. That first well that Isaac dug, he called Esek, to contend. I don't know if we have, like, how much contending can we do? And just in this moment, I'm going to have Bethany and Kevin, if he wants to come back up here, go into worship. And I just want you to contend for a moment. Right? We're not looking for an emotionalism or anything like that. I want you to contend for a moment. Go past the issues outside these four walls right now and look at the eyes of fire. Look into the Lord's eyes and ask him if he would make room for you. I know John had his ministry. He had a long ministry, right? John the Revelator, the youngest disciple. and he saw revival. He saw Jesus die and raise from the dead. He saw those things happen. Right? He saw those things happen. He saw the church be established. He saw 3,000 people saved. He saw prophetic things. He saw all these good things. He was living on the mountaintop. But then he also saw every one of the other apostles be killed. He saw the church be attacked by Rome. He saw persecution. And he himself was boiled alive in acid and then casted to where? The wilderness island of Patmos. Right? And his ministry just ends there and he doesn't do anything, right? No, that's not what happens. Instead, what happens is on that island, John heard a voice. And the revelation that he got, right, that we think the book is called the revelation of end times. It's not. It's the revelation of Jesus. It says it in the first line. The revelation of Jesus. And the book is not about how the world's going to end. Instead, it's about how Jesus will win the victory. It's about how Jesus will win the victory because he is the Lamb worthy. We were singing it just now. He was the Lamb worthy to open the scroll. It's not about that the world's going to get really, really bad and really, really dark. It's about that our Jesus is brighter than the world. That our Jesus is greater than the world. That our Jesus will defeat the world. That our Jesus has the authority of heaven, death, and the grave. And so, if we go into this, it's not going to be a traditional altar call. Instead, I just want you to press in for a moment and just go back into worship.